Cool, and even we've got a really cool collaboration coming up. We've been speaking with CoGround. Andrew is right there. They're an amazing organization. So they essentially have taken ownership of a building in Brunswick where the building is not used for at least a year because it's going to be developed. In the meantime, it's just sitting there, and they run events and a cafe pop-up. We are going to help them activate it even more with co-working. So keep an eye on Brunswick. At the moment, we've got Fitzroy and Docklands here in Melbourne, and about 6-7 other spaces in Sydney. It's a network, which means that members can work from anywhere, so it's all flexible and a lot of fun as well. Cool. Community, we've got really exciting things happening. Brandolo right there, Brian and Marco is one example. They joined us a while back. The hustler and the tech guy came together and formed a pretty awesome team called Brandolo. Keep an eye on that startup because it's really exciting what they're up to. Launching their MVP very soon as well. Cool. And then Sir Basil. Can I please get a massive round of applause for the team at Sir Basil? Woo! So you might have had a chat with Matthew, who's behind the bar. He's the manager. His dad John is around too, and his crew. Amazing vibes. I've had such good feedback from everybody that has come here. The vibes are really cool. Space speaks for itself. Already mentioned that. We've got this chill out area coming here. So the turf is just the beginning of the chill out zone where we're getting lounges. Couches is what I meant, and hammocks and bean beds, and a really cool area to work from a hammock if you want. And last but not least, Sir Basil. So I'm not sure if we've got a logo there on the other side, but so logo is a dog, and there's even some photos on the walls. So it's called actually Sir Basil because Basil is the family dog, and yeah, we got creative and thought that it would be a cool title to call this event Unleash Co-working because of that, but I'm not sure if a lot of people got that. Cool. We are running a lot of events from here, so in the evening it's closed, we can use it for events. So if you know a cool meetup that wants to collaborate for events, please hit us up.
Yeah, I know.
Melbourne Silicon Beach, exactly. We're partnering with Melbourne Silicon Beach to run events from here, as well as their Creative Professionals meetup. So yeah, we welcome all cool events. And then last but not least, we've got a pretty awesome promotion for any of you. So we really want to kickstart this space with a bang. And you know, give everybody the opportunity to try co-working. So anybody that came, and friends of yours as well, we've got a 50% discount on the first month of TwoSpace for the next 2 weeks. So you know, join us, join the community. And I want to introduce you to Elle. She is our amazing MC. She used to be the York Butter Factory community manager and is now Academy XI's experience coordinator. Is that right? She's a legend, amazing person. And Academy XI are also one of our core partners who are always there to support us. So yeah, can I get a massive round of applause for Elle? Woo-hoo!
I think I might even get everyone up here at this point. Can I get the panelists as well to come up? Come on down. Yeah, like Bill said, and thanks Bill, you're awesome. We all know that. My name is Al. I work for Academy XI. We are a future-focused education company. We run short courses in emerging technology and design, but what we do expands out of the classroom. We run heaps of events. We partner with plenty of people, Silicon Beach, TwoSpace, all the rest. I work in the experience branch of the business, which is really, really fun and exciting. I work with our students, our instructors, and I work on the social enterprise branch of our business, so I'm really lucky. I'm super excited to be here tonight. I have said this before at TwoSpace events, but TwoSpace is really the embodiment of the startup community coming together. It's really amazing, and the work they do is of great benefit to all of us, basically. I really love it, and the diverse community that it attracts is yeah, brilliant. So I'm stoked to see everyone here, lots of new faces, and yeah, ready to kick off. So we have 3 brilliant panelists with us tonight, as you can see. And we're excited to get to know them. I'm not going to let them introduce themselves. Sorry, I've got the Docklands wind in my hair. I'm not going to let them introduce themselves because tonight's panel discussion is very much a tell your story. We're not focusing on, you know, a topic of expertise. We're focusing on them as individuals and their journey. So we're going to get to know them as the discussion kicks off. So we have Megan Wright beside me, she's co-founder at Impactful Ventures. We have Sean Chen, co-founder at Collective Campus, and we have Anna Reeves, co-founder at That Startup Show. So we're going to get to know them. And I believe I'm passing the mic down to all of you. Good, sharing is good. So my first question for all of you is, when did you have an idea that you knew was worth betting everything on?
I'm up first. I was actually doing a double degree at the time when I realised I was going to deep dive into social entrepreneurship and technology, which I had no understanding of or background in. I told everybody that I was quitting uni and I was never going back because I knew I was going to change the world. And I proceeded to build a Facebook group and add like 250 people in. Like, I was crazy. Okay, this was about 4 years ago, and I wanted everyone to be involved in this technology platform which would unite people around values and social good. And I just had, like, looking back, I just had no shame around failing early, failing fast, because I didn't see the failure coming. I thought, how hard could it be to build a tech and bring people together and do great stuff online, you know? What could go wrong? So the struggle was real, but I felt that I had the passion and the self, I backed myself, you know? And so I guess 4 years is the answer.
Awesome. It definitely wasn't when we ran our first workshop and one person attended. But I guess going back a little bit further, I didn't really have one moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I kind of fell into co-working as well myself, which was kind of my first foray into working with startups and being part of this community. And that was really, I've heard about this co-working thing in the States. I've got some office space. I'm going to go to Bunnings and build some tables, put up a website, and then some people started to come into the space and just kind of hang out with me. And I guess it just kind of grew from there. It wasn't until I moved into our new office, which is where we are now on Queen Street, before I realised, okay, I've actually spent a lot of money on this thing now, and I need to find a way to figure it out and make it work.
I think maybe it was when someone was prepared to pay me some money to do it. Probably. Not really. No, it was definitely, it was part of that story. It was definitely, I think a moment, I actually did have this idea for the startup show literally in a pub on a napkin. It literally was that cliche. We're at the Savoy Tavern, having a few beers. It's now unfortunately knocked down. Sadly, that was our home. And I thought this would be a great idea for a TV show in this pub, and I absolutely had no idea how that was going to happen. But I enrolled, I met my co-founder Sally Gatenby, and she was working at a VC firm, and we had this amazing conversation. I had many red wines, and a month later she quit her job and started working with me on this startup show, and it was pretty crazy. It was a bit of a roller coaster, but I think that was probably the moment when, you know, someone believed in you. And I think probably the money part of that, which is why it is so important to have early investors or early people supporting your journey, is when Alan Jones from Blue Chili, he was the first person to invest in us, and that was pretty special. Yeah. Because that makes things happen from that point.
It's really awesome. I really love hearing about these sorts of things, like when was the moment that you sort of clicked. And for some people, they're like, I was going for it all the way, going for gold, and yes, I had to pivot, but I always knew I was going to make it. And for some people, it's like they bet everything, and then all of a sudden when it takes off, they're like, wait, what? I'm doing this thing for real now, and it's really amazing. I think that's something that you all have in common is obviously a hunger for it and total resilience. So it's really great, and I'd love to, talk all night about just that, when you had that moment. So on that topic of sort of making it work, where is the weirdest place that you have ever had to pitch your idea to someone?
I realised halfway through question 1 that I hadn't answered the question correctly, but this is a good opportunity to answer it correctly. I actually pitched the chairman of Australia Post, and he's the Chancellor of Deakin University, out the back of a conference. It was really interesting because a psychic had told me that this exact situation was going to happen. She didn't tell me where at the conference, but she said that this thing would happen. And so I'd gone to this conference and I was really hoping that I was going to meet this man who was going to, be involved in my project. But for 3 days I didn't see anyone who fit the description until John Stanhope got up on stage and was talking about the need for the kind of product that I was creating to exist in the marketplace. And I was at the back helping as an assistant stage manager at the time. So when he came off the stage, I had to take off his microphone. So I'm standing there trembling, because I was completely underprepared. I didn't have a 90-second pitch. I didn't even have a 60-second pitch. So I just pitched him point blank, face to face, and I'm just making a complete mess of it. And he just gave me 3 business cards and he said, you better come and see me. So a couple of weeks later, I ended up in a very tall tower above Australia Post, properly pitching. And that was the moment that I knew I had an idea worth betting on.
For me, I haven't really pitched anyone in, I'd say, a special or weird spot, but I have done some outreach which I thought would absolutely not work. That got me a response, which was pretty interesting. So we've got an office in Singapore now, and one of our first trips there, after a bunch of meetings, I was on the laptop, and you get on LinkedIn and you start to sort of look up people in the area, and I just read an article about some billionaire who just formed a fund, and I looked him up and he was in Singapore, so then I found him on LinkedIn and I shot him a connection message. I was like, hey, I'm in Singapore, do you want to grab lunch tomorrow? Not thinking anything of it because I send so many of these spammy messages every day. But then he responded 20 minutes later. He was like, hey, I looked up your LinkedIn profile, let's catch up. So that was really weird. I had no idea, I didn't even know what I was going to pitch him about. I just knew that he had a lot of money and he was in Singapore and seemed like the kind of guy that I'd like to know. So since then we've had a lot of catch-ups. He's been here, we've been there. He drinks like a fish, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, we're kind of friends now. There's still no business engagement because there's nothing that I can really do with him, but I know a billionaire, so I guess that's it.
I need to know that billionaire. I think for me was the obvious one, which was the pub that I was at the time. I had to talk to the pub owner and convince the pub owner that this was a good idea to hold a television show inside his pub that he had just spent $1 million refurbishing. His name was Sam Daish, and he was fantastic. He was just such an amazing person. He just totally opened and went, yep, let's just do that. So if it wasn't for Sam giving us a space, and that's why it's probably relevant to tonight, people understanding the opportunity to repurpose something or do something different, which I think is so great that Bill's doing, and he's working with the hospitality community. I love that. And the team at TwoSpaces. But the other one was obviously, I forgot to mention my co-founder, Ahmed Salama, who I said over the phone, I pitched him the idea of just coming to Melbourne, leaving Sydney and coming to Melbourne, and joining this merry band of the 3 of us that had no idea what we were going to do in this pub. So that would be probably the 2, in a pub and on the phone. Yeah.
I want to throw something in there, and Bill, forgive me, and trust that this is a good idea. But I did literally get stuck in an elevator with someone the other day with a tote bag that has Academy XI on it, and they literally got me to pitch in an elevator, and I realised I had no idea how to do that, and it was the stereotype at its finest. But I want to put you all on the spot for a minute and ask you to give me your 60-second pitch or 20-second pitch or 30-second pitch. I'm just gonna hand it to the pros because I could learn a thing or two because I was dumbfounded in that elevator going so give me your best.
Nice. Okay, raise your hand if you would prefer to donate money to a charity that keeps their overheads low and promises to get more of your dollar to the people that you're donating to. Raised hands in the room. Okay, Well, that's fantastic, but I'm here to tell you that by you demanding that not-for-profits keep their overheads low, you are encouraging a culture which means they cannot grow. They cannot use data effectively to measure and evaluate or optimize their efforts, and they can't market and advertise, which means that by comparison to the private sector, they're going to stay small. And yet we encourage them to deal with the biggest problems in the world. So I'm here today to encourage you guys to have a perspective change around the idea of a not-for-profit sector, and we're going to rebrand it the for-purpose sector. And I'm going to help you guys measure and evaluate data more effectively.
Mine's going to be a bit more quick, I think, but we're Collective Campus. We partner with the expertise, distribution, and domain expertise of corporates with startups who are fast, agile, and get shit done.
Yes, pressure's on. That Startup Show is an online TV show about startup culture, future tech, and innovation. It's like Jimmy Fallon meets Dragon's Den.
I love it. We see there, folks, we have 3 different techniques, all very valuable. Okay, having a bit of a mood shift now to some things that are really important and that need more light. Over the last 2 years, I'm sure that you've had many highs and lows, but if you wouldn't mind sharing with us what possibly your lowest point over the last 2 years has been, what got you there and what got you out of it, what got you moving forward?
I did see this question before, but I was thinking to myself, man, there have just been so many points where I thought that I was on top of the world and I was doing the right thing, and there was days when I just thought, like, fuck this, I can't, sorry, am I not allowed to say that? Uncensored. I was just like so frustrated that I had given up my double degree, my master's, and made this fool of myself in the public eye, like I told you guys before, through my ruthless self-belief. But in particular, one time that I remember was when I accidentally doused my laptop, which wasn't particularly well backed up despite me working in tech, with water. A bottle that just did not want to close when I shoved it in the bag. So my laptop was dead, and it was a public holiday, so I couldn't even rush it to the hospital. And then that same day I found out that I wasn't going to get paid for 3 months worth of work because a conference that I had helped to organise was falling over. So the guy was just like really unapologetic about it. He's like, yeah, we're not going to go ahead with the conference, and sorry, there's no money to pay you. And I was like, okay. So that was slam number 2. And then I took my phone to the Samsung store and I asked them to help me with a programming fault. And they said that they backed up the phone. And I don't know about how many of you guys as entrepreneurs use notes? You use your notes, yeah? You save heaps of really interesting stuff that you want to come back to some other time. Yeah, they deleted all of my notes. They deleted everything. And so I was on my way home that day, and my startup was just in shambles, and I was just faced with this situation of thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage and like emotional trauma of my notes being gone off the face of the planet. And I think that was a really low point for me because I didn't really know who to turn to, because I feel like a lot of my friends didn't really understand the pressures of being an entrepreneur and not being able to generate income until you get your idea off the ground. I think a lot of them are kind of like, what do you do all the time? Like, what could possibly be happening before you have a business that's functioning, you know? So I remember just feeling like really low, and that was a really strengthening exercise for me because I still kept going, and I got a new laptop and paid it off over time and things like that. So
Yikes, that's never good when your technology fails like that with important documents on there. Like you, we've had a lot of challenges over the years and a lot of learning. I think one clear example that comes to mind was when we had landed one of our big first major clients. So this was a big international law firm. It was going to be a client that we could put on our website with, a great case study behind. And the day that we were delivering the first workshop, which was in Sydney at the time, Steve and I, so Steve, my co-founder, and I, we were both in Singapore. So it was going to be the first time that we had to place all of our trust in our team to basically execute everything flawlessly. And as you can imagine, in entrepreneurship, no matter how much planning you do, things will go wrong. So halfway through the workshop, it was a 2-day workshop, we received a very angry email because things weren't going right and expectations weren't being met. And you know, Steve and I just felt absolutely helpless at that stage. But we managed to get the team together. We managed to, you know, work through the challenges together. And looking back at that moment now, you know, there's a real sense of pride in how everyone came together and said, okay, how do we fix this? How do we do better? And yeah, I think surviving that has definitely given us a different outlook as to, firstly, we knew how to improve going forward, but secondly, to be able to trust our team and the people that we invite into our company to really take ownership and do a good job. And I guess just being stoic in general and going forward and sort of taking those lessons on the chin and never letting it sort of, you know, end your business, I guess. Yeah, because there were moments then when I was like, okay, this is too hard. What are we actually doing here? But yeah, you know, since then it's been going fantastically, and we've actually just won a deal with another international law firm to do 40 workshops around the world now. So on the back of that, we've been able to, you know, get something out of it.
Yeah, I think media and content creation is really hard. It's a little bit different from startups. It does take longer to get finance. There's so many moments. It's been a roller coaster. I can definitely say that without fail. I think one of the saddest things that we went through as a team, Ahmed, Sally and I, was we actually had a fourth co-producer who was going to work with us on executing the show at the pub for our first series. And he unfortunately passed away about a month or 6 weeks before we were supposed to shoot. And that was tough for us. That was really hard. That was, you know, we had a whole. I will never forget the day of being in the office, going to meet him with a new editor, and he didn't come there, and getting a bit emotional. His name was Jared Hassel. He was an extraordinary person. He was the person that actually championed VidCon to get here. He wanted to champion creators all over Australia, YouTube creators, set up a Black Magic studio, create a platform where people could, younger emerging filmmakers could get their start. And I guess we've just carried that legacy for him, actually, and it was such a shock to us because it was like a whole thing, direction. We thought about pulling everything and not doing it at that point. But there's been a few little moments like that with the team that we've gone through, and I think the one thing that I love about Sally and Ahmed is that, and we are a comedy show, is our sense of humour. Our sense of humour is the one thing that actually helps us. Because what can you do but you know, bring yourself up from that point, and you have to not take life so seriously sometimes, because it is damn hard at times, especially in the entrepreneur journey. It's not all like glitz and glamour. I think people think it is sometimes, and your quote overnight success is usually years, as Sean and Megan can attest to, and others. It is. It's years of hard work and knockbacks and rejections and, you know, questioning why you're doing this, feeling like a cat climbing up a curtain, things like that. But yeah, that was probably the one thing, yeah, I could say.
Yes, well-deserved clap. It's really moving hearing you all share those sorts of things with, you know, a room full of basically strangers, and I'm really thankful that you do share those stories, because we also know that the struggle of an entrepreneur is not just isolated to the entrepreneur themselves, and that it impacts on your families and your loved ones, and that it's a struggle that sort of ripples, and it's an enormous thing to go through, and it takes an enormous amount of resilience. So I think, deeply inspiring for people who may be in a similar situation, to see that you're up here talking about it and you're out the other side. So thanks for sharing those things. One of the questions that we had for tonight was, knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time, would you start the same company, or what would you do differently? But I assume that your answers would all be yes. I would still be here. So I might spin it slightly and say, not so much what would you do differently, but what would your advice be to your younger self? You can answer the question as it was intended to be answered to begin with. But if you'd like to give advice to your younger self, I thought it might be a nice way to draw on the stories that you've just shared.
Can I take a second? I'm going to give this to Sean for a sec. I want to come up with something good.
Buy a lot of Bitcoin and retire at the end of last year. I think, as you said, I think entrepreneurship is not so much what you end up doing. It's kind of like an attitude, and I think most of us would make really poor employees. And I think we would have just always done something. I definitely didn't know when I started Collins Collective in 2013, my small tiny co-working space that would be Collective Campus now, and working with multinationals and incubating startups and working with investors. But you kind of, find your way. I think if I were to give myself advice, it'd be, it takes time. Don't give yourself too much pressure to, be making those big checks from day one, to get investment from day one, to just kind of pace yourself. It's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. But also, this is what you were kind of designed to do, and kind of enjoy the journey as you're doing it.
Yeah, I love that comment about joy. I think finding the joy and not getting caught up in the drama of it. Like, I think there is a lot of financial uncertainty, or uncertainty generally. Like and there's this pressure to execute quickly, and there's also a lot of culture around that, particularly from the Silicon Valley sort of myths and hype around, you've got to be crushing it, killing it, doing all that. But that just isn't the same. We don't get access to capital the same way in Australia. It's a risk-averse investment community, or that is changing. So it can take a bit longer for in some areas. And I think for the startup show, one thing we probably didn't do was probably take advantage of the fact we were global from day one, and we should have probably thought about expanding globally from day one, because we had interest from countries all over the world and audiences from all over the world. But we were still trying to navigate what business model media is. I mean, there's a huge disruption going on in it. And we were going, because a lot of the funding sources are still here, in Australia, and they geo-lock you into Australia. The ABC, for example, wants Australian content, but then if you've got a global outlook and you've got a global audience and you want to talk about global things, then that doesn't necessarily always sort of marry up with what their investments are. But yeah, finding the joy, but also persistence. There's times when you've got to absolutely move your ass and just not be scared and just go for it. You've got to get that work-life balance thing, the downtime as well. That was one thing I think I probably am still learning. I guess because I get so excited and I love what I do, but it's like you can only do so much, and you need to give yourself some downtime as well in that. So.
Okay. What I've come up with is I would not trademark anything before I knew exactly what I was building. Even if you think you have the best idea ever, don't trademark until you're not until you know that you're not going to pivot. So that was one thing. Make sure that you get plenty of magnesium and salts. So salt is a really important thing. We don't really give it enough credit, but I'm just going to give you all a hot tip. If you have a little teaspoon of Himalayan salt in the mornings in water, and then you have magnesium oil or a magnesium supplement at night, it can prevent you getting adrenal fatigue, which is a very, very hard thing to deal with if you are running a startup. That would be my advice to my younger self.
That's the advice.
Everybody write that down. And with that advice, we are now equipped to go out into the world fully fledged entrepreneurs. It was all very great advice, and I personally take it. And yeah, thank you for that. The final question for tonight is the one I've been most excited to ask, because it always gets such creative responses. But if you could title your personal life or your career with a movie title, what would it be?
Okay, I also thought about this question, but I came up with a number of different responses. And I think the truth is I would call it The Revolution of Love, and I would have it shot by Oliver Stone. Did you ever see the Doors movie?
Yeah.
It'd be like that vibration with a bit of Russell Brand involved and things like that. Okay.
That's a good one. Mine would be a movie. Let's see. Learn Fast, Move Fast, Fake It Till You Make It, Electric Boogaloo, Volume 2.
That's so good. How could I top that? Well, I think mine was My Little Pony, and now it's Atomic Blonde.
Brilliant. Fantastic answers. That brings us to the end of the panel discussion. I hope that you've all enjoyed getting to know these three wonderful human beings. Your journeys are inspiring, and you're just such genuine, ambitious people. So thank you for sharing your journey with everyone that's here tonight, and I hope that we can all work together again in the future. I hope everyone's sticking around for drinks and nibbles. I'll hand back over to Bill in a moment. But also, thanks for being here, and if you have any questions related to Academy XI, please tap me on the shoulder. I'll be here for a while, and I love to talk, so I'll answer any questions that you have. So thanks for being here, and I'll hand back over to the wonderful Bill.
Awesome, thank you. That was so cool. Thank you for those insights. I hope that was valuable for everyone. The startup journey is something that you can learn a lot, I really think, by hearing other founder stories, reading books even, masters. But at the end of the day, there's certain things that you don't get to experience, learn until you do it yourself. So I invite anybody to kickstart their ideas, their dreams that they've been thinking about for a long time. If you haven't already, and if you have, then keep it up, because it's a pretty tough journey. That's something that we all agree on. There's no doubt about that. So keep it up. Hopefully we can help you in your journey to support you with so many things beyond just a desk. So keep it up, guys. I would love to call on stage, our amazing stage here, Jared. Jared is the founder of Climates, and this is as of very recently, now officially a charity. We actually are donating 50% of all the ticket sales for tonight to Climates. They're doing amazing work, but I would love to have Jared to share a bit, just a bit about what they do. So a massive round of applause for Jared, please.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for all your ticket sales. We really appreciate it, because we don't really have any revenue streams, because we need these guys to tell us how to do that. At this stage, we've just been registered as a charity, which is really exciting. Basically, the work that we do is empower people in the Australia Pacific region to work together to address their climate challenges. So everything that we get involved in is at the invitation of communities that are out in the Pacific that are dealing with the consequences of climate change right now. And that's something that we might not necessarily feel is the case when we look around here. We're in Docklands, everything seems to be pretty business as usual around here. But there's people, our neighbours that are suffering the consequences now of our actions. And we just need to start thinking about the future. We need to start making some material reductions to our emissions in Australia to demonstrate trust to our neighbours, if for no other reason. And we also need to start working on ways that we can sort of rethink adaptation. empowering people in the Pacific is really what our core objective is here, so that the people at a point where they can be making decisions on how they choose to respond to climate change. We've got one of my good mates from Fiji, Viti Niotambua, who's here at the moment. You'll see him wearing the sulu, which is like a skirt. He's shaking his head because he's been like doing the talking rounds for the last 5 days, like speaking to everybody, and now he's like, oh no, more talking. But if you want to go say g'day, he's the one in the bright green shirt. But I don't know if that's super clear, but that's sort of what we're doing, and just want you to know that we really appreciate the contribution that TwoSpace and all of you are making to this work that we're doing. Thanks very much.
Amazing, thank you so much. Alrighty, so just a last thank you to everybody. Anna Reeves from That Startup Show, Sean Kian, Collective Campus, Megan Wright, Impactful Ventures, our sponsors MYOB, of course all this amazing place, amazing team that we've partnered with. Academy XI, of course, wouldn't forget about you guys. And Young Henrys for the beers and the ciders. So anyways, stick around. This is all about connecting. It's all about you guys mingling and getting to know each other. So stick around, have some beers. We'll have another live session by Danny Ross, our epic musician. He was actually the finalist of The Voice, who most of you, I imagine, know a few years ago. He is this amazing musician that we've got here tonight. So let's stick around for another session and have some fun. Thanks so much for coming.
Hello, Silicon Beaches. Is this live or video?
Hello, Alex. Hi, Dave.
I won't say anything you'd have to edit out right now.
I don't do anything.
Okay.